think for a moment about what truly makes us tick as humans. What are those underlying currents that shape our choices, our feelings, our very understanding of life?
That's the fascinating territory we're diving into today. The realm of human considerations. We're using a really interesting piece as our guide. Understanding Human Considerations. AI analysis.
Right. And this source, it breaks down human considerations into things like, well, our emotions, obviously, but also our intentions, why we do things, our needs, our values, and, the beliefs that guide us.
Basically, the whole package of what makes us human.
Exactly.
And what I found really striking in the source is this idea that the first real push to understand all this stuff wasn't some lofty philosophical quest initially.
Oh, what was it then?
It was actually driven by a very basic need to lessen suffering and, well, live longer.
Huh. Survival first. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Doesn't it? So our mission today, if you like, is to unpack this whole complex idea of human considerations.
Yeah, we'll be looking at it from different angles: philosophy, psychology, biology.
And interestingly, how AI is trying to get its digital head around these same concepts.
No, we should probably say up front, this isn't about finding one single answer.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
Understanding ourselves is messy, it's complex, and meaning, well, it's not something fixed out there. It's something we kind of build together, share.
Yeah, construct it. And the source points out a useful difference between meaning, like, how we make sense of daily life and purpose, those bigger long-term goals that give life direction.
And both are really key parts of these human considerations we're exploring.
Okay, so let's maybe start at the beginning. How did this whole quest to understand ourselves even kick off?
Well, like we touched on early on, it was likely very focused on just surviving.
Right, don't get eaten, find food.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Recognizing what hurt, what helped, that was the first step in figuring out well-being. A sort of basic form of human considerations.
Okay, and then?
Then came language. That was huge.
Ah, communication.
Exactly. It let us build meaning together, share stories, create narratives, figure out our place in the world, collectively.
So storytelling was baked in right from the start.
Absolutely crucial. And out of those shared stories, you start seeing belief systems emerge.
Like early religions.
Yes. They offered ways to explain the big unknowns, gave moral compasses, a sense of purpose, often tied to something bigger than the individual. Think external ideals, not just internal feelings.
Giving people a why.
Precisely. You see ancient cultures, like in Greece, framing life's purpose around things like virtue, achieving eudaimonia, that deep sense of living well by acting virtuously.
Interesting. So less about just feeling happy inside, more about living up to certain external standards.
Often, yes, especially in those early frameworks. Then, monotheistic religions shifted the focus somewhat, often centering meaning on following divine rules, maybe the promise of an afterlife.
A more structured, perhaps divinely given purpose?
You could say that, but then things get really interesting during the Renaissance and the Enlightenment.
Okay, what happens then?
You get this big shift towards humanism, towards rationalism. The focus starts turning inward.
Individual potential, reason.
Exactly. I think, therefore I am, that sort of thing. And it's really in the 19th century that philosophers start tackling the meaning of life head on as a central question.
So it actually took a while for that specific phrase, that specific focus to become mainstream in philosophy.
It really did. And alongside this, we were getting better at just keeping people alive longer, improving quality of life.
Right, so it wasn't just about survival anymore.
Exactly. The focus broadened. It became about how we were living, the quality of that life.
Which brings us to things like Maslow's hierarchy.
Perfect example. That pyramid really shows the progression. Once basic needs like food and safety are met, we start looking for belonging, esteem.
And then right at the top, self-actualization.
That drive to fulfill our potential, explore our values, maybe contribute to something bigger. These are all core parts of what we're calling human considerations.
Okay, that's a great sweep through the historical evolution. Now let's pivot. How does something like artificial intelligence even attempt to understand this stuff? It seems so human.
It's a completely different approach. Humans rely on, gut feelings, empathy, lived experience. We feel things.
Right.
AI is all about data. It crunches massive amounts of information, looks for patterns. It uses things like natural language processing.
To understand text and speech?
Exactly. Trying to figure out sentiment. Is this positive or negative?
Yeah.
Or intent, what's the person trying to do? And it uses computer vision to analyze images, like facial expressions.
Trying to read nonverbal cues.
Yes, attempting to map visual data points to emotional labels it's learned. Like it might see features associated with a smile and label it happy.
But it doesn't feel happy.
That's the critical point.
Yeah.
It lacks the subjective internal experience. Its understanding is based purely on the patterns in its training data. It's recognition, not feeling.
A really important distinction. It sees the signs, but doesn't have the inner state.
Precisely. And that's why a big area of AI research is trying to develop something called theory of mind.
Which is?
The ability to grasp that others have their own thoughts, beliefs, intentions different from its own. That's a huge step needed for more genuine social understanding.
Wow, that sounds incredibly difficult to code.
It absolutely is. Think about emotion AI. We see it in chatbots trying to detect frustration.
Oh, yeah.
Or systems analyzing audience reactions to maybe a movie or an ad. Some AI even tries to link physiological data like heart rate to emotions.
That's pretty sophisticated stuff.
It is, but huge challenges remain. Nuance, sarcasm, cultural differences in emotional expression, these are really hard for AI.
And bias in the training data too, I suppose.
A massive issue. If the data it learns from is biased, the AI's understanding will be skewed. Garbage in, garbage out, essentially.
Okay. So, keeping those AI limitations in mind, let's look at how understanding these human considerations actually impacts our lives day to day. It's not just theory, right?
Not at all. It affects everything. Start with just us, individuals, how we develop.
Our understanding changes as we grow up, surely.
Absolutely. Think about developmental psychology frameworks like Piaget's stages showing how our thinking gets more complex, or Erickson's stages mapping out those psychosocial challenges across life, identity, purpose, intimacy.
So a kid's idea of sadness is way different from a teenager's.
Totally. Less nuanced, less complex. And our sense of purpose often gets stronger as we figure out who we are, maybe in adolescence or early adulthood. It keeps evolving, too.
And that theory of mind thing, understanding others have their own perspectives, that develops in childhood.
Usually gets more solid around age 4 or 5. It's fundamental for getting along with people, understand why they do things.
And it connects to resilience too, right? How we cope.
Definitely. Having a sense of purpose, feeling connected to others, those really help us bounce back when things get tough. Understanding ourselves and others is key to navigating life.
Makes sense. Okay, what about our direct relationships with people? Spouses, friends, family.
Oh, human considerations are the absolute bedrock there. Healthy relationships need some shared meaning, some shared purpose,
Yeah, being on the same page.
And understanding each other's emotions, intentions, needs, that's what builds empathy, trust. Good communication flows from that. It's about tuning in.
Recognizing if someone's happy or hurting, and maybe why.
Exactly. And interestingly, good relationships can actually boost our own sense of purpose. It works both ways.
Feeling understood helps you feel purposeful.
And it often does, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so important to remember that what gives meaning to your life might be totally different for someone else.
Right. We're not all the same.
So you need that grace, that empathy, respecting different views.
Okay, so individual relationships. Let's zoom out again. Society. How does our collective understanding shape bigger structures?
It has a huge influence.
Yeah.
Think about social status, economic systems, what jobs or skills we value and reward, even education, what we think is important for people to learn. It all reflects our shared understanding of what matters.
Like finding purpose in your job, for instance. That seems more important now.
It really is. It's strongly linked to job satisfaction, productivity. And companies are catching on.
How so?
They're realizing that aligning their company's purpose with employees' values helps attract and keep good people. It's not just about the paycheck anymore.
People want to feel like their work matters.
Exactly. And our focus on education itself shows we value learning, growth, contributing something.
Okay, so it shapes our work, our learning. What about the really big questions? Belief systems, philosophy.
Absolutely central. The whole philosophical quest, the development of religions and spiritual traditions, it's all deeply tied to grappling with human considerations. What's our place? What's the point?
Yeah, you wonder if religion was the starting point for thinking about this stuff. The source mentions that possibility.
It's a natural thought, since early belief systems provided those first frameworks. But interestingly, the source notes that the specific question, what is the meaning of life, only really became a major philosophical focus around the 19th century.
Huh. So the way we ask the question evolved too. Now, this might sound a bit left field, but the source connects all this to our physical health. How does that work?
It's fascinating, isn't it? There's growing evidence that having a strong sense of meaning and purpose is linked to better health outcomes.
Really? Like what?
Reduce stress, lower risk of things like heart disease, dementia, even living longer.
Wow, that's quite a link.
It really is. And conversely, lacking purpose seems linked to more anxiety, depression, especially in younger people. It underlines how important finding meaning is for just overall well-being.
So our minds and bodies are deeply connected through this search for meaning.
Absolutely. Basic physical needs matter, of course, but our psychological state, our emotional landscape tied to these considerations profoundly impacts our physical health too.
Okay, psychology, society, health. Is there a biological root to all this, an evolutionary reason why we seek meaning?
It seems very likely. While the conscious search for meaning might be uniquely human, the underlying drives probably have biological roots.
Like our brain chemistry.
Yeah, things like emotions, drives, behaviors, they have genetic and neurological bases. Think about the brain's reward system, dopamine, feeling good when we achieve something meaningful. That motivates us.
So our brains are kind of wired to seek purpose.
In a way, yes. And evolutionarily, being able to make meaning probably gave early humans a big advantage.
How so?
Planning, cooperation, working together towards goals, finding meaning in collective action would have boosted survival chances.
Meaning as a survival tool. Interesting way to put it.
The source calls it a sort of non-physical resource that brains evolved to use for better learning, adapting, organizing socially, maybe first for the individual, then with language for the group.
So things like altruism, cooperation, they help the group survive.
Exactly. Even if it doesn't seem immediately beneficial for the individual, it helps the collective thrive. It's part of our evolved social nature.
Okay, that adds another layer. Now, the source also talks about ethical implications and this human dilemma around meaning.
Right. The struggle itself raises ethical questions. Think of Viktor Frankl's work on finding meaning even in horrific suffering.
Logotherapy, yeah.
It highlights this incredibly strong human drive. But then you might ask, why do some people seem to completely disregard human considerations, act cruelly?
That's a tough one.
The source suggests maybe a profound lack of personal meaning could contribute to destructive behavior. Or conflicting beliefs, different values leading to different ethical conclusions.
And fear plays a role, too.
Yes. Terror management theory has mentioned the idea that fearing death motivates us to find meaning, to create lasting value, maybe through culture or beliefs, to feel like we transcend mortality.
It feels like there's a deep human need for, well, better logic sometimes, to understand life and death. Can AI help there?
People might hope so, but the source emphasizes that while AI can analyze data, these deep existential questions really belong to human philosophy, personal experience, and our emotional lives. AI doesn't have those.
Right, okay, but let's flip that. How can AI potentially help us enhance our well-being, maybe even help us understand ourselves better?
Well, its strength is analyzing huge data sets. It could potentially spot patterns in our behavior, our language, maybe even physiological signals that correlate with well-being or a sense of purpose.
Patterns we might miss ourselves.
Exactly. Imagine AI helping you identify core values based on your choices, or suggesting career paths that align better with what truly motivates you.
Personalized insights for finding fulfillment.
Potentially. Or think about emotional intelligence. AI could analyze communication patterns, offer feedback to help improve empathy or conflict resolution.
Like a digital coach for social skills.
Could be. But again, we have to remember its limits. It can process text about existence, but it doesn't grapple with existence itself. It lacks that consciousness.
It simulates, it doesn't experience.
Precisely. But it can help practically. Automating tasks frees up our time for meaningful things. Monitoring well-being stress, sleep can provide useful data for us to act on.
So indirectly supporting the search for meaning by clearing the decks or providing health insights.
Exactly. It can offer logical analysis, but the big why questions still require that human mix of emotion, intuition, philosophy.
Okay, the source actually tackles some very specific questions people might have. Let's run through a few. When does this understanding of human considerations start?
Right from birth, apparently, developing gradually through interactions. Those early bonds are key. Then that theory of mind kicks in more formally around age 4 or 5.
And who benefits from understanding all this better?
Everyone, really. Individuals get more self-aware, better relationships, better well-being. Society gets more cooperation, empathy, maybe more ethical behavior.
what about being born without this sense? Is that possible?
The source connects this idea to conditions like autism spectrum disorder, where interpreting social cues and others' perspectives can be challenging. It highlights how fundamental this understanding usually is.
Makes sense. And resilience, what boosts that?
Key factors seem to be a sense of purpose, good social support, and having an adaptive mindset.
Culture must play a big role, too.
Oh, absolutely. Culture shapes our values, beliefs, how we express emotions, even what we define as a meaningful life. It's not universal.
I mean, intuition, that gut feeling.
The source says it's crucial. It works alongside our rational thinking, helps guide decisions, even if we can't always explain it logically.
And the reality of life itself. Big question.
Ah, yeah. The source describes it as that complex mix of biology, environment, and our own subjective experience. No simple answer there.
What about AI helping with coping mechanisms?
It could offer personalized suggestions based on data analysis, maybe analyzing physiological signs of stress to prompt helpful actions.
And freedom. What does that mean here?
Often it means that existential freedom, the freedom to choose our response, to create our own meaning, even when facing tough situations.
And teaching kids about this stuff.
Vital for their social and emotional growth. Building empathy, understanding perspectives, ethics starts early.
One last one. Why is it hard to go back to how you felt before a major experience?
Because big experiences change us fundamentally. They shift our perspective, lead to growth. You're literally not the same person afterwards.
Okay, pulling this all together then. How can we potentially improve things? Maybe using AI thoughtfully.
Well, the source suggests using AI ethically as a tool, helping people pinpoint values, find aligned activities or communities, maybe using it for early mental health warnings or suggesting personalized coping techniques.
Analyzing communication to improve relationships was mentioned too.
Yes, potentially helping us understand each other better. But, and this is crucial, it has to be about augmenting human abilities, not replacing them.
Augment, not replace. Got it.
We need transparency in AI, we need to tackle bias, and fundamentally, we need strong education and societal support, social emotional learning in schools, encouraging open conversations, fostering empathy from day one.
So it's a two-pronged approach. Leverage AI wisely, but double down on human connection and understanding.
That seems to be the most sensible path forward.
Well, this has been really fascinating, a proper deep dive into something incredibly complex. It's clear that understanding human considerations is this ongoing journey for us.
It really is. It shaped our past, and now we're exploring it with new tools like AI. But that core human drive for meaning, for purpose, that remains central.
And it does seem like there's real potential for humans and AI to work together, maybe helping us understand ourselves even better, contribute to a more fulfilling life.
It's certainly a frontier worth exploring carefully.
So a final thought perhaps for you listening. Maybe just take a moment later today to think about one part of your own sense of meaning or purpose. What does it feel like? And maybe how has your understanding of it changed over time? Just something to mull over.
This is DigitView.